This is Secondary 1 Honors, Quarter 2, Part 2, Video number 8. We're going to use matrix equations and inverses to solve systems of equations of 3 by 3 or greater, and we're going to use a graphing calculator to do that. You will need to have your notes already printed out that you're filling in, a pencil, and a graphing calculator. I will be using a TI-84. Okay, the first thing on video number 8, you need to enter matrix A, and so remember how to do that on your calculator. Remember that it's a 2 by 2 matrix, and so tell your calculator you want a 2 by 2 matrix named matrix A, enter it as it is. If you remember from before, to find the inverse, and you don't have to write this down, but remember it's quite a complicated process where we did the determinant, and so that was 14, and then we did 1 over the determinant, and then we did the switched around matrix, and then we multiplied that through, so we had 4 14ths and negative 2 14ths and 1 14th and 3 14ths. Then we reduced it as we could, and that was the inverse. We are going to use technology or graphing calculators to do that now. You're going to find that with 2 by 2 matrices it's not hard to find the inverse, relatively speaking, but with something bigger it's going to be quite difficult and really not desirable at all. So using our calculator, we're going to enter matrix A, and then you are going to quit, so make sure you do second, quit, and then you're going to do second, and then matrix, and then under where it says name, you're going to choose matrix A and enter. And then on your home screen you'll see matrix A. Then what you're going to do is you're going to choose the button that says x to the negative 1. That's the one that you usually push to get matrix, but we're not doing second this time. So what your calculator will look like, it will say matrix A to the negative 1 power. That is the symbol for inverse. So we're going to have the calculator find the inverse of that matrix. When you do that, this is what your calculator gives you. Now if you can't see all of it on the screen, remember use your right arrow to go and you can find the rest of these decimals. And if you don't think that looks ugly, all those decimals are really not something you want to be writing down a lot. Fortunately though, the calculator will help us change these decimals to fractions. So at the very bottom of the same page that you're on, it tells you how to do that. Below where you're at right now, and you're going to go to the Math menu. You are going to choose the first choice is fraction, number 1 fraction, and then you're going to hit enter, and then on your screen it will say A and S, meaning the answer. We're going to turn it to a fraction, and then you're going to hit enter again. And then this is the matrix that it gives you, so it turns all those decimals into nice pretty fractions. And so that's how you're going to do that, and you're going to want to remember how to do that. So on your paper, just above number 5, write in what the inverse of matrix A is, and then we'll go on to number 5. Okay, number 5, we're going to enter matrix B, which is 7 5 4 3. So when you go to matrix and under where it says name, this time use your down arrow to choose matrix B. You can see that there's a lot of names for matrices. We're going to kind of stick with the first ones just because it's easier, but I want you to see how you can do multiple matrices and use them for the same problem. So in matrix B, you're going to tell it you want a 2 by 2 matrix and enter this one as it says. And so pause this and go ahead and do that. Okay, now you're going to find the inverse of matrix B. So remember that you're going to do second, and then matrix, and then now this time you're going to go down so that you choose B. Make sure you do B, not A, or else you're going to get the same answer you had last time. So on your home screen it will say this time matrix B, and then you're going to do that button that says x to the negative 1. So this is what it should look like on your home screen. And when you hit enter, you will see that this is the inverse of matrix B. Now remember, back when we did this, you could take the original matrix B times its inverse, and if you multiplied those two together, remember that you would get the identity matrix. So if you're ever stuck with anything, you could always do that and check. You don't really need to, as long as you're careful that you entered this properly, then your inverse should be okay. And you'll always find out at the end when you check your system of equations to make sure that it works, that you did it right. Okay, question number 6 on your notes. We are going to now take a 3 by 3 matrix and find the inverse. Now you have not learned how to do this by hand, and I am not planning on teaching you this. This is quite a complicated process that nobody really wants to do anyway. So we're going to use the calculator to find the inverse of this 3 by 3 matrix. So what you need to do is first type in matrix A, so second matrix, and then edit. You're going to do a 3 by 3 matrix. And remember to type all these entries. You just do 2, enter 3, enter 4, enter 0, enter 6, and so on, and you get them. And it goes quite quickly once you get used to how to do it. So once you've entered matrix A, we're going to now find the inverse of A. So pause the video, put that in, go through the process, and on your paper write what you get for the inverse of A. Make sure that you've had your calculator turn your entries into fractions so that you don't have all those ugly decimals. And this is what you should have for the inverse of A. So I'll let you look at that and make sure that you've got the right thing. If you don't, then you need to go back and make sure you entered everything correctly, because this is what the answer is. Okay, before we can get to solving equations, systems of equations, we're going to do one other thing. And you remember back when we learned how to multiply matrices, and so to multiply matrix A times matrix B, and we did rows times columns and added that together, and another row times column. We can actually have the calculator do that for us now. So we're going to enter matrix A as this first 0, negative 2, 4, 6, so a 2 by 2 matrix. Then you're going to quit. It's important that you quit each time. And then you're going to go back into matrix, and this time go down to B and enter matrix B. This is a 2 by 1 matrix. And you can always tell if you're doing the dimensions right because you can see what it's going to look like and make sure that you've got it right. So once you've got those typed in, then quit again. So then on your home screen, you're going to go to second matrix and choose matrix A. And then you're going to do second matrix and go down this time and choose matrix B. And so that's what you should see on your home screen. And then you hit enter. And when you're done with that, you will get the product, and it will tell you that the product of that is negative 2, positive 18. And that's how you multiply matrices on a calculator. So we're going to use that for the next problem. Okay, problem number 8, we see a system of equations, 2 variables. You've done this type of thing before without a calculator, but I'm going to show you how to do it with a calculator now. The first thing we're going to do, and you see that on your paper you have a space to do this where it says 8 part A, write the matrix equation. So if you remember how to do that, you're going to put your coefficients in the first matrix, then you're going to put the x and the y in the second matrix, and then your constants in the last matrix. So go ahead and write that down. Pause the video. Okay, back when you solved this by hand, you then found the inverse of this matrix and multiplied it by matrix B. So that's what we're going to have the calculator do this time. So you are going to type in, after you've entered your matrices, go back to your home screen, so quit, and you're going to type in matrix A inverse, and then multiply it times, and then matrix B. And so this is what you should see on your screen, this right here. And then hit enter. And then when you do that, you will get your product. Now, the product is not very appealing. This is what you should be writing on your paper also. This is the inverse. So I want you to find that first just to make sure you're getting the right thing. You won't have to show that every time, but we just want to make sure you're getting the right thing. But the answer for that is 70 over 13 and negative 76 over 13. And that's your answer for your system. So that's not really something you'd want to do without a calculator, but that's how you would do that. Remember that you can just write your answers as x equals and y equals. We're going to be focusing on other things right now, so you could still write them as ordered pairs, but since we're going to systems of 3 equations, we're not going to do that at this point. Okay, number 9, you see a system of 3 equations, so 3 variables, 3 equations, And the first thing we're going to do is write it as a matrix equation. So I've got written on the screen how to write that, so I want you to copy this on your paper and write it down, and this is just a precaution to make sure that you've got everything in the right place. Notice how I put a 0 in place of that missing x. Since there's nothing there, we need to have a 0 in that spot. So go ahead and enter that. Okay, now here I've written what the matrix is, and if you want to, you can check it out by typing A inverse in your calculator and enter and change it to fractions, and this is what you get. As long as you've entered your system correctly, you don't need to actually write that down every time. You can just go ahead and have the calculator calculate the inverse of A times, and then you're entering your matrix B, and then just hit equals and you get the answer. And in this case it comes out to 2, -3, +1. And what that means is that x is equal to 2, y is equal to -3, and z is equal to 1. You can go through and check all of this, of course, and you probably should. You can use a calculator, so it's not very hard. But just going through 2 times x and 3 times y and 4 times z, add them all together, you should get -1. Remember, if it doesn't work in any of these equations, it means your answer is wrong. Go back and check it. So I wrote down here how I checked each one and just put a check mark so that I knew that I did that. You don't necessarily have to write it all out, but you do need to be checking that to make sure you're getting this correct. Now I put on the notes that you could write this as what we call an ordered triple. So you could write that like this, but I don't want you to do that. We're actually not going to do that in this class because we're not graphing in 3 dimensions. We only graph in 2 dimensions. When you get into secondary 3 and pre-calculus, you're going to graph in 3 dimensions. But since we're not doing that, actually, we're just going to leave our answers as x equals, y equals, and z equals, or whichever the letters are. Okay, last example before you try this on your own, number 10. We've got another system of 3 equations, 3 unknowns. I've written on the screen the matrix equation, so write that down. This is your matrix A and your matrix B. So on your paper you need to write what you're going to put, and then go ahead and type this in your calculator. So this is what you should see on your home screen. You do not have to actually find the inverse every single time. You can just let your calculator deal with it. And then you're going to put your answer down. And so you should get -2, +5, +1. And so you're going to write that x is equal to -2 and y is equal to 5 and z is equal to 1. Now you see on your worksheet in various places I have a box like this right here. And this is a check box, and so this box is designed to remind you that you need to check your work. And so when you come in to check your papers, it's just a formality because really you've already checked it. And so you need to check it and show me that you've checked it by putting a check mark in it. Now when you put a check mark, I am assuming that that means you checked it, you have guaranteed that this is the right answer, and you're guaranteeing me that that is the right thing. And so, like I've said before, you're going to owe me $5 for every time that you put a check mark in there and you don't have the right answer. Okay, you can now complete numbers 5 through 10 on the Part 2 worksheet. Remember what checking the box means. It means money for Mrs. Bench if you do not get it right. So, go ahead and do that, and then we'll see you back here for the next video.